Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're just gonna go live on Facebook and get this rock and roll it on the way. You're gonna be 10 seconds, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and we have a little bit of a delay. Maybe not, maybe. Welcome. Welcome to this special coffee with yours truly, Dragon. A special cup of coffee. We're going to discuss financial issues. And of course, first and foremost, before we commence, before we begin, as always, I'm going to say gratitude that I'm grateful, thankful that my rent's fully paid my rent and electricity bill, and I'm grateful for this bread. Thank you, farmers, butchers, bakers, because everybody got to eat, even Wall Street, for this peanut butter and this, of course, cup of coffee. Just gonna put this on the side for now. Just gonna say a blessing because this is gonna be my reward after this meditative, of course, reflective video, which I'm gonna be making on finance as an independent financial student and scholar student, and of course always ever learning every day. So many things I do not know, do not claim to have knowledge of XYZ, so many details of everything that's going on in the universe of finance at this moment in time. Do know that Wall Street is buying, selling, trading stocks, futures, options, puts, and that I'm calling at the heart as this philosopher, independent financial analyst and theorist and athlete and activist and artist for the Wall Street. If you do make a million on the stock market today, please give 10% for food security. 10% of a million is the equivalent of 100,000. 100,000 you can divide it by 4. Can give 25,000 for food security because everybody got to eat, even Wall Street. 25,000 for environmental issues, and 25,000 for women's sports leagues, and 25,000 for, of course, LGBTQ youth services and what have you. Today is going to be a special emergency scenario, emergency session of financial emergency with yours truly, Dragon. Who, although I'm living in a financial crisis myself, am triple vaccinated and open for business. I am grateful, thankful that my rent's paid, fully paid my rent, fully paid my electricity bill. And of course, I got this cup of coffee for which I am grateful for that. I got the coffee, I got the peanut butter, I got bread, and of course, I've got some wafers on special 222 yesterday, Canadian dollars, and my rent is fully paid. And I'm open for business. If anybody wants to commission a video sponsor, of course, as I'm auctioning my hoodie, my black hoodie, or whatever have you via PayPal, North America shipping only, PayPal business only, solely at the moment, and of course auctioning 93% of all the items which own, such as shoes, underwear, clothing, or items as pens or papers, whatever I have in my ownership for yours truly to finance the foundation of the dancing goddess in the Dragon Kingdom, which is my dream for world peace, and of course as a North American Canadian Quebecer for the rejuvenation, regeneration, and pleasure and purpose and insurance of liberty, and of course for the joy of the collective North American civilization, aka the North American civilizational complex, for which first and foremost my theories are for the implementation, as I am calling, of course, on a public and a private partnership. Everything that I do as an independent geopolitical analyst and theorist, artist, philosopher, and financial theorist, such as my financial theory known as the DRT, the debt refusion theory, which I do firmly believe with all the faults, all the vices, all the flaws of character, rock and roll, as I am a little bit of rock and roll and I am a bit artistic and have art and of course write songs, poetry. I firmly do believe that the implementation of my theory known as the DRT, debt refusion theory, is what's needed at this point in time where we are financially. So we're going to discuss it, a special part one of an ongoing series which I've begun, probably going to be a Trinity tripod, of course, tomorrow or Friday or whenever Saturday when I'm going to do the next part two and part three of this. This is part one. It's going to be titled, and it is titled, of course, Emergency Financial Cup of Coffee with yours truly, Dragon. I'm going to rock and roll, say my gratitude, thankfulness. I am grateful, thankful that my rent is fully paid my rent for the month of March, fully paid my electricity for the month, of course, of March. It is March 15th already, and of course, almost halfway since March has 31 days. I cannot stress enough the importance, my brothers and sisters. I encourage all to work out, to train, and to exercise. Physical exercising and regular workouts have been, are, and will continue to be my medicine and therapy of choice, and have been, of course, calling for the mass financing of citizens across the collective North American civilization to work out, to train, and to exercise, as it really has been, is, and will be my medicine and therapy of choice. And I've been depressed and suicidal, have conquered depression, I've conquered depression via working out, training, and exercising, and embarking, beginning a fitness journey a few years back. Created my own workout training program system, which I'm advocating for the implementation, of course, the adoption in across high schools of Quebec, La Belle Province, Canada, coast to coast, and throughout the North American civilizational complex. High schools, and as early perhaps as 7 years old, from grade one, maybe to start to implement my workout training program, which is simple, effective, and efficient, and requires no equipment, and is of course easy to do, and have been doing performing hundreds of videos on my own creative workout training program system, which I've begun in October 2019. And the paradox of me creating that workout training program system, of course, is that when I created it, paradoxically, as an independent fitness captain, a world peace advocate, I still am hoping for world peace, calling for an immediate ceasefire and implementation of my Trinity of theories, and of course for the DRT theory. And back when I created the workout training program, paradoxically, I've created it to go hand in hand with a World War III scenario due to my geopolitical analysis back in 2019, when I've sounded the alarm and I've said, brothers and sisters, we are again on a path towards an international conflagration due to several events which had transpired, which of course the main events, geopolitical events and historical events, were taken into consideration for me to come to that conclusion. And I've said in October 2019, unfortunately, my conclusion is that we are again embarked on a path trend towards an international conflagration, and so made created my workout training program to be go correlating and parallel with such an event scenario, and of course which is simple, effective, and efficient, and requires no equipment. Thank you, farmers from Quebec, La Belle Province, for the bread, for the bacon, for everything that you do in the production of food, from the potatoes, of course, from all the fruits, all the vegetables, all the legumes, and of course all those involved in the production and the distribution of food. Big hugs, big thank you. Unfortunately, cannot have open doors here, open house. Open doors is too small, literally underground room, office, and temple in my office room and temple in Montreal, Hawk Island, which has been my home for many years now, and of course, which has also been my home in past lives and incarnations. In this Quebec, La Belle Province, Canada, as I of course love French language, as I am a Quebecer. I write poetry, rock and roll songs in French and philosophy as well, but this is gonna be an English, of course, version, of which I am gonna do the French version for my other groups and programs, for the French version of this theory, which of course is the DRT. DRT stands for debt refusion theory, which I of course call for all to support in a public-private partnership and the implementation of it in a parallel complementary way with the citizen integration theory and the democratic fusion theory, for my public-private partnership of the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, for the rebirth, rejuvenation, insurance of liberty, sharing of prosperity, joy, and of course defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, since my brothers Quebecers from La Belle Province, Canada, coast to coast, down to Mexico, Canada, United States, my brothers and sisters, we got two oceans. That way is the east, that way is of course the Atlantic, when the maritime provinces, Newfoundland, Labrador, and of course Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, and of course Nova Scotia is, and that way is the west, when I go after Ontario, is of course Manitoba, the prairies, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and of course Alberta, and of course to the west coast we got all the way to the British Columbia, to Vancouver. So ocean to ocean, strictly and foremost for defense, security services, that I'm calling for the creation of the two complementary covenant and cooperative institution by the implementation of my Trinity theories, and first and foremost the DRT. So it has been in the news since March 10th, and before I do proceed, I'm going to say again, thank you to the farmers, because everybody got to eat, even Wall Street. I said everybody got to eat, even Wall Street. Everybody got to eat, even Wall Street. Thank you, farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors. Let's do a meditation on the supply chains of North America, Canada, Mexico, going on those truckers by the tens, by the hundreds, by the tens of thousands, from Montreal, metropolis island of 2.5 million people, second biggest city in Canada, going having a cup of coffee somewhere with a staff with tons of hundreds, 156 kilos of bacon, 156 kilos of potatoes, or 156 kilos of grapes or fruits or vegetables or grain or wheat or barley or bread, 93 kilos of bread, all those trucks with a supply supplying us the food for our North American collective civilization. Thank you, big dragon hugs. And if I would have something bigger than this small room office and temple Monday to Friday, I would have, if I'm home, of course, I'm not marching or doing XYZ activities that I do as an independent artist, athlete, writing and marching, doing rock and roll and philosophizing and meditating on our civilization, and of course on our privilege of civilization, because my brothers and sisters, we all got The Privilege of Civilization, which is another thesis, which I've of course began 2023 January with presenting my thesis, and will continue in the coming days, weeks, and months, presenting my thesis, discussing my thesis as the people's doctor. My thesis is entitled The Privilege of Civilization, of which myself have the privilege of civilization. Of course, we all have, from the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to, of course, President Biden, to multimillionaires, to those in Wall Street, multimillionaires, multi-billionaires. Please finance food security to those financially struggling, economically, financially, commercially struggling, such as yourself. But who is grateful that it's mid-March, March 15, my rent's paid, electricity bill is paid, and I'm open for business. If you want to commission, sponsor XYZ, your story is open for business on any topic or subject or dance or workout. Yours too is open for business, and perhaps myself or my official volunteer representative Retziela Yelwork, my official volunteer representative OVR Retziela Yelwork, will direct, instruct, and commend thee in my name, rebirthing as Adrian Hanna Dragon, who died during COVID, and being reborn triple vaccinated during this COVID, and hoping and calling all to support my vision and my Trinity of theories for us to move individually and collectively towards a post-COVID economic, social, philosophical, political, private, public partnership for pleasure and purpose. Pleasure and purpose, pleasure and purpose can dance, can be together complementary, for purpose, of course, to upgrade civilization, go towards the stars, and of course attain harmony between civilization and nature, and adopt my philosophy that the body is a temple for pleasure and purpose. Myself wishing can afford that. I wish I could afford a massage therapy session. I don't know how much they're charging now. Last time I've been to ask is more than 3.5 years ago, and it was like $80 beginning for half an hour, and then $50 every other half hour. So for an hour is like $130. I said, hey, cannot afford it. Of course, there are places that are cheaper, but yeah, I don't know if you can get anything below $50 for a massage therapy session. But I think that would be more realistic, $50 for those. Or I cannot afford. I couldn't even afford $50 at this moment in time. But I'm grateful, thankful that I can substitute, and I have a bathtub, and I can have hot water with a boiler built with brains and muscle, since brains and muscle has been, is, and will continue to be required for us to build and maintain civilization. And of course, I could heat my water because my electricity bill is paid, and I could have hot water and take a bath during the Sabbath, double baths, and of course to substitute for not being able to afford a massage therapy session, as we have doing a lot of substituting and adapting on this. We're still not over COVID yet. It's still COVID times. It's still officially COVID times, but let's say it. Where I am triple vaccinated, please get vaccinated, and please cannot stress enough the importance to increase in hygiene in public. Please increase in hygiene in public. This is my, I'm open carrying my disinfectant when I go in a bank. If it's not present there available, I use my own. If I go in a grocery store, handle money, touch of course item to check where they're made, how many grams, XYZ, if you do purchases, or if go XYZ other domains, which is not my own private, because right now I'm in my private underground, literally underground room, office, and temple, in my private domain, right, underground. It's too small, my underground room, office, and temple, which also served as a gymnasium to have open houses, open doors. If somebody helps me for that Westmount in between 57 the Belvedere and 53 the Belvedere and Tim Belvedere Road on Westmount. Of course, there in Belvedere Summit, but I posted on several videos on it. Maybe it's been left decrepit, desolate, and decaying for more than 7 years, and with LOV and kisses that got, because kisses got by the train. So I'm super rich, affluent, and wealthy. I'm the first world's kiss trillionaires, and those kisses were credited to yours truly with the condition to freely distribute to all my willingly loving allies and armies. So kisses got by the trillions. If you want to be a kiss millionaire, you can share from those trillions of kisses, because a trillion is 1,000 billion, a billion is 1,000 million. So kisses got by the trillions, and of course financially in debt, $10,000 to the RBC, and in the minus already, but my rent's paid, electricity bill is paid, and a lot of people are, of course, not all, but a lot are, and have been for a few years now during COVID, financially, economically, commercially struggling. Myself, I'm open for business, and of course, I'm calling for Call It a Heart to Wall Street, to multi-millionaires, billionaires, to finance food security, and of course, calling all governments, institutions, and organizations, both public and private, because my call is a private and a public partnership. Fundamentally, in essence, everything that I do and I call as a philosopher, geopolitical analyst, and theorist in finance, in society, in philosophy, in politics, as a geopolitical analyst and theorist, an athlete, an artist, an activist, and world peace advocate, is fundamentally a public and a private partnership. And of course, I will present my DRT today. Debt refusion theories have been in the past days. Thank you. Truckers, let's do a meditation. How many truckers? Going east, west, north, south. Thank you. Big dragon hugs to the farmers, truckers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors. Kisses, hugs, tickles, because that's what got. First and foremost, you can say no to the tickles, no to the kisses, no to the hugs, but sing me some rock and roll. I'm ready to rock and roll. Gonna rock and roll a little bit. Rock and roll it for the farmers, for the butchers, for the truckers. Rock and roll it for the farmers, for the butchers, for the truckers, cause everybody gotta eat it for Wall Street. Rock and roll it for the nurses and the doctors and the firefighters and the public security workers. Rock, rock, rock. Rock, 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 rock and roll it. Shake your head to the east, to the west, to the north. For this North America with a blue sky, get the sunshine. Get the spring is knocking at the door. For the rebirth that you know before. For the rebirth, spring is knocking at the door. For the rebirth, what you know me for. For the rebirth, what you know me for. For the rebirth, what you know me for. For the rock and roll, for the workers in those warehouses with those steel toe boots. Wearing steel toe boots. What a construction, what a construction, what a construction. Who builds the houses? Thank you. For the house builders, for the construction workers, public-private partnership, gonna rock and roll it, let the main out, let the main out. For the highways, on the trucking, going east, going west and north and south. With those potatoes and that bacon and that bread we gotta eat. Even Wall Street gotta feel this, gotta wait up for the mission, for the commission, get the sulkers. Yeah, 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 yeah. There you go, a little bit of rock and roll, because you can say no to the kisses, no to the hugs, no to the tickles, but Dragon's gonna rock and roll for the farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, firefighters, public security workers, dock workers, warehouse workers, train conductors, bus drivers, teacher, and those sanitation workers of the city. Thank you, sanitation workers of the city who picked up the garbage Monday, the recycling, and we're gonna pick up the compost 3 times a week. They rock and roll, load those big trucks. Thank you, big dragon hugs. It's like to offer more than blah blah blah, because blah 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 and theory and philosophy, because only go halfway, and we got to do a little bit of each. Some brain and muscle has been required for us to build civilization and to maintain civilization, with some art and some humor and some comedy, which we got to use sometimes to heal or to address socioeconomic issues which have been growing, and we have to address racism issue. That's all that we do. And of course, and myself, part of the LGBTQ community, being androgynous pansexual as well, it's still a process of ongoing liberation. But today is not the topic of those, but is the topic of economics, finance, commerce, finance, economics, finance, and commerce. The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. Myself, at the moment, I only utilize a bank, the RBC Bank, Royal Bank of Canada, one of the top five in Canada, top five banks. The record profits, please. Finance, food security, some housing, some, of course, youth sports to encourage youth to work out, to train, exercise. Super important. Cannot stress enough, my brothers and sisters, for us to channel and sublimate. Those are two key words of my philosophy. This importance to channel and sublimate the aggression, the violence. I admit I have aggression in me, but my brothers and sisters, channel it. Do push-ups. Dragon Army, which I'm calling for the public-private partnership to create a Dragon Army to be strictly and only for defense, security and service across the collective North American civilization, to have one of these mottos in parallel to nobody's born a dragon, not even myself with a surname named Dragon, but to also have this motto, philosophy. Channel the aggression with push-ups and hugs. Of course, with consent. Don't start hugging people in the street just like that. Give a hug. Give a hug. Can I hug you? You want to hug? Yes, no. So what I do, I ask when I usually have a conversation with somebody individual. I say, so I might ask about vaccines, hygiene, XYZ. So you want to hug or whatever. You want to hug. XYZ want to hug us. I'm all for hugging, big hugs, big dragon hugs. Sometimes though, as a matter of fact, if you're listening to this right now, how much is a period of hockey? Go Hockey. Habs won yesterday. Please give 10% owners and players of the NHL, NFL, and MLB, and NBA, all players and owners of the four major patriarchal sports. I'm going to say patriarchal because there's not even one women's sports leagues, which makes even close financially, economically, commercially what the aforementioned make, right? In terms of economics, finance, commerce, is not even comparable in terms of percentage. There's not even one women's sports leagues where the average salaries are in the millions. The four aforementioned, the NFL, National Football League, the average salaries is in the millions. So some make more, some make less. The NHL average salaries is in the millions. The NBA is the most, 7.7 million average. So some make more than 7.7 million, others make less. The MLB, again, in the millions of average salaries, right? Not even there's not one women's sports leagues. That's why the DGA Dancing Goddess Army, although it will be integrated, my dream for the public-private partnership for the DGA to call, of course, cooperation on the NHL, National Hockey League, NFL, National Football League, NBA, National Basketball Association, and MLB to support the DGA. I'm myself a greatest dancer. I love sports, love football, love hockey, love basketball, baseball, and of course I can tolerate it. I accept it. I accept it. I accept it. Some people like it, but dancing is my favorite sport. Dancing is my favorite sport. Dancing is my favorite. So the DGA to be created, the Dancing Goddess Army in a public-private partnership. But please give for food security, owners and players. As much as I love the sports now, please give for food security. Call it a heart from this independent athlete. And there's times I know you've rushed back to pre-COVID business as usual. Myself, I don't want to go back to anything pre-COVID. I want to break impasses, and my working out, training, and exercising, and on the fitness journeys bring me joy and sunshine. And seeing people loving and kissing and hugging is always bringing me triple joy. When I see people holding hands in public, is double me the joy. When I see people hugging, it's triple me the joy. And when I see people kissing, sevenfold joy. I get joy from being seeing people loving. So give yourselves with consent, a hug. Like a 20-minute period of hockey. It's three periods. Each period has 20 minutes. 20 times 3 is 60 minutes. An hour of hockey, right? If you're multi-millionaire athletes and owners, please give for food security. You hug 20 minutes. Give yourself a big hug for 20 minutes. With consent. That's my message for the day. Find allies of the Adriana Dragons allies, which are my family. I consider, of course, all allies and armies pledge your allegiance to be my family, and all those who love me to allies and armies to pledge allegiance, and they are my family. And of course, all allies and armies are my de facto family and members and allies and armies of the my dream manifesting as the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom. So I'm calling for the UE to be created via the DRT, but first we're gonna of course read about the collapse of Silicon Valley, which is a major event in the economic, financial, commercial, not just United States but North America, throughout the North American civilizational complex, and worldwide, international, global, because of course we have been in since November 9, 1989. I'm saying November 9 because of the Berlin Wall. More financial, economic markets, but it's also days to some policies of Reagan in 1984, the deregulation of the USA financial markets, banking markets, and international financial system, how it has developed and grown and became a little bit more complex. Although in the essence, fundamental, what money is. Speaking of money, let's see, how much money do I have in my wallet? This is my wallet. I also have digital, although I'm doing the recording, and although I downloaded the app RBC, not the digital. I am for digital because my UE, the creation of the UE, can be also monetary, can be also banknote, but I'm calling for the UE to be, of course, digital more than with the older system, or by card. By card, I have a client card, my bank card here. Don't try to steal anything because with the lion on it, with the lion on it, with the lion on it. I'm in the red already, so you can't even even if you want, you would not be able to do it in such a manner. So I have 35 cents Canadian there. 35 cents Canadian. I have $5 Canadian. Let's see when this money was printed. This money was printed 2013, 10 years ago. This $5 Canadian was printed 2013. Myself, what I'm gonna buy with this money, because fundamentally, money, although there's complex financial instruments and arrangement, fundamentally money is, of course, to buy and to sell, to buy and to sell. Sure, we can have loans, credit cards. That's a different type of money. It's a credit, right? It's a credit for a future payment with interest. And of course, fundamentally with this, what myself, since I am economically, financially struggling, you can say even in a crisis, although I'm grateful, thankful that my rent's paid, with this money is going to be prioritized to buy. I ran out. I still have coffee. I bought it, got the best deal for coffee. So of course, this money is going to be prioritized for me to buy filters. I got to say that I'm utilizing. I cleaned the filter, so now I wanted to make a test if I can use twice the same filter. So it seems like the coffee is not that bad. So I might try to stretch because I've been living Spartan for since October. My World War III scenario workout since October 2019. I've been living very Spartan like since October 2019. I've been living very Spartan like October 2019. But of course, it's not bad. So even twice utilized, a second time, so you can. But you have to clean it. Of course, you have to get rid of all the coffee, and I let it dry on a plate. So I let it dry overnight on the plate. I cleaned it, so then I reused it. So it seems that it's not bad. The coffee doesn't taste that bad. It's not really discernible. It's not kind of the same. So you might be want to use the filters twice. You want to save some money. You know, you would save if you pay $1.99 or $2.99 or one. What? How much did I pay? I think it was $2 or for filters. I think I'm gonna do that for the next filters, so just to save a little bit of money, For the filters on the coffee, so I'm gonna with this $5, I'm gonna get filters, and I'm gonna probably get some noodles, and it's gonna be food, only food, food, food. Maybe I'll get a candy for $1, and then for $2 the filters. That's three, and then maybe get some noodles, right? So that is the Canadian dollar, and I also got. What of this? I'm not gonna spend this mostly for ceremonial, mystic, spiritual motives. But I got a US dollar. So the US dollar printed in 2009. See? Serial number US dollar printed in 2009. US dollar. So that is money. To buy or sell fundamentally. What is money? Unit of exchange, banknote, unit of account. It's all these things at the same time. Right now, as I'm speaking, there's transactions made, some by card, by the bank card, some by the phone. Right, that's the latest. More and more is going with that, and that's cool. I like it. I would get the app if I would have more, a new phone or whatever. I have more. That would be the app only. Some more fintech. What's called fintech. So people confuse fintech with crypto. Myself on crypto. Now that we are on the economic, financial, commercial parlance and discussion and meditation and philosophizing about economics and finance and commerce, my statement has been, is, and will be this on crypto. Yes, cryptocurrency is fancy algorithms and fancy, sophisticated, wondrous technology, internet based communications, internet based computer technology, computer internet based telecommunication technology. Crypto fundamentally is internet, computer, algorithmic, fancy code, and software, right? Code and internet technology, tech. That's what my statement on crypto. However, it's not a asset. It's a speculative financial instrument, if I would call even an instrument, but it's mostly a speculative. But I wouldn't go saying an asset, right? I have to make that distinction. So I wouldn't myself get involved with crypto, but there's potential for crypto. Now that I'm speaking on crypto, calling on all crypto traders, east, west, north, south crypto trader, to support my DRT, my debt refusion theory, to save the world, save the world, save the world by the DRT. Because fundamentally, I think that crypto, it is fancy, sophisticated, wow, wondrous computer, internet technology, telecommunications, and software and coding. But fundamentally, it's a speculative instrument, if I could call it an instrument in the tech financial instrument, but not an asset. I wouldn't classify it as an asset. An asset would be stock of a corporation of, let's say, now that I'm live on Facebook. On Facebook, even I'm using MSN, so MSN, Microsoft, Astrological Brother Bill Gates, Scorpio Brother Gates, Scorpio Brother Gates, Scorpio Brother Gates, calling on my Scorpio Brother Gates to support the DRT, my theories, and all my dream and all my the implementation of my trinity of theories. I'm live on Facebook, and Mark Zuckerberg also, and from Google, and all institutions and organizations, and small business, medium-sized business, big business corporations, first and foremost from Quebec, La Belle Province, Canada, coast to coast, and throughout the North American civilizational complex. Collapse of Silicon Valley. March 10th, of course, Silicon Valley Bank, it's Silicon Valley Bank, has collapsed. And now I'm going to be reading a little bit on Wikipedia. So you're going to do a little bit of brain training, or training the brain of what exactly happened. So on March 10, 2023, Silicon Bank Valley failed after a bank run, marking the second largest bank failure in the United States and the largest since the 2008 financial crisis. 2008 financial crisis. 2008 financial crisis. The collapse of SVB has had a significant impact on startups from the US and abroad, with many unable to withdraw money from the bank for a limited period of time. Other large technology companies, media companies, and wineries were also impacted. Interesting, wineries of California. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the tech sector experienced a period of growth. Capitalizing on an increase in deposits in 2021, SVB purchased long-term treasury bonds. So now we're going to go read a bit about a bank run. So on March 10, 2023, Silicon Valley failed after a bank run. A bank run, or run on the bank, occurs when many clients withdraw their money from a bank because they believe the bank may fail in the near future. In other words, it is when, in a fractional reserve banking system, numerous customers withdraw cash from deposit accounts. So a bank run occurred, marking the second largest bank failure in United States history. Second largest, so it's very significant. Second largest in history, United States financial history, and the largest since the 2008 financial crisis. So the collapse of SVB, standing for Silicon Valley Bank, has had a significant impact on startups from the US and abroad, with many unable to withdraw money from the bank for a limited period of time. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, the tech sector experienced a period of growth. Capitalizing on an increase in deposits in 2021, SVB purchased long-term treasury securities, or known as treasury bonds. What are they? So United States Treasury securities, also called treasuries or treasuries, are government debt instruments issued by the United States Department of the Treasury to finance government spending as an alternative to taxation. So United States Treasury, also known as Treasury or Treasuries, are government debt instruments issued by the United States Department of the Treasury to finance government taxation, finance government government spending, so spending on military and infrastructure and all the government spending as an alternative to taxation. Since 2012, U.S. government debt has been managed by the Bureau of the Fiscal Service, succeeding the Bureau of the Public Debt. There are four types of marketable treasuries: treasury bills, treasury notes, treasury bonds, and treasury inflation protected securities. That's an interesting one, the TIPS. The government sells these securities in auctions conducted by the Federal Bank of New York, after which they can be traded in secondary markets. Non-marketable securities include savings bonds issued to the public and transferable only as gifts. The state and local government series LGS, purchasable only with the proceeds of state and municipal bond sales, and the government account series, purchased by units of the Federal Reserve. Treasury securities are backed by the full faith and credit of the United States, also known on Wikipedia article general obligation bond. So full faith and credit the United States is also called a general obligation bond. It is a common type of municipal bond in the United States that is secured by a state or local government's pledge to use legally available resources, including tax revenues. There's four types of treasuries. So this, of course, it digs back to the history a little bit. To finance the cost of World War One, the U.S. government increased income taxes. See the War Revenue Act of 1917. And with this, I'm just gonna go back, and we're gonna come back. I'm just gonna go get a little bit of more coffee, and I'm gonna put on the news. So I'll be absent for about 3 to 5 minutes. I'm just gonna put the news 3 to 5 minutes. Might be breaking news. Might be global financial collapse.
Action is Farley Dickinson Place, Texas Southern at 6:40. Yep, 6:40 p.m. Okay. And 9 p.m. we got Nevada and Arizona State. And a quick reminder: the deadline to fill out your NCAA March Madness bracket is tomorrow at 12:15.
Oh, okay. We should do it for sure. Brian, thank you.
No problem.
Jason is standing by. We'll look at your news, and then when we come back, an investigative piece of Live the Bar shows if you're a racialized person here working as a blue-collar worker, even a white-collar worker, the city has a lot of work to do. That's next.
You're listening to the voice of Montreal. News, talk radio, CJAD 800, an iHeart radio station.
Good afternoon, it's 3:01. I'm Jason Mayoff for the CTV News Update. Clearing this afternoon, it's +4 downtown. Weather details in minutes. Here's what's making news right now. A former PQ leader is being released from jail. A new bill on racial profiling in Quebec. And the opposition parties go after the Legault government on the mess at the SAAQ. The latest from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center, here's Lauren Glazer.
It's a pretty slow drive on the westbound side of the 20 now, starting before Ontario to Norman. Also delays for northbound to Cary from Sugar Cup to the top. Southbound to Cary, we're losing time now from the top to Cote St. Catherine. Also pretty slow southbound 15, Outwater to the bridge. Off and on delays westbound side of the Met via to the Cary for the westbound side of the T-Can. It's slower from before LCA come back down to the Ellisport Bridge. Off and on delays for northbound Laurentian now, starting at the 440, running up to St. Rose. Lisa, 2023 Lexus NX from $298 bi-weekly at 24 months, with 5,123 down. See your local Lexus dealer for details. Traffic and transit every 15 minutes on CJAG 800. Your next report at 3:15.
In the news, the former leader of the PQ has been granted parole. André Boisclair was sentenced to 2 years in jail last summer for sexually assaulting 2 men. Back in November, he was denied parole because of what the parole board called his arrogant attitude. And a policing bill is drawing plenty of attention when it comes to random traffic stops.
The bill's focus is on avoiding discrimination by police. It puts new guidelines in place and increases anti-racial profiling training, but the public security minister's bill avoids the bans on random stops that have been recommended in the past. The minister responsible for the fight against racism, Christopher Skeet, says that random checks are still allowed but have to be documented annually. He added that between this and the rest of the bill, he feels random stops based on discrimination won't be allowed even without a ban.
We're going to be creating a directive that's going to now say that this is not acceptable and that it is not the intention of the police force or the ministère de la Sécurité publique to have that kind of a behavior from our police officers.
Skeet echoed comments from François Legault that random stops are a tool they feel the police need. I'm Don Kagan-Fleming.
The opposition parties say the Legault government and its ministers should be held responsible for the mess in recent weeks at the SAAQ. Interim Quebec Liberal leader Marc Tanguay took aim at the Minister of Cybersecurity and Digital Technology, Eric Kerr.
In the Ministry of Eric Kerr, things are not going well. They're lacking personnel, they're lacking experience as well. And Eric Kerr, as far as we know, doesn't have the experience within his role to go forward with major change. And we have to put a standstill on this and make sure that Eric Kerr will be able to do his job, because obviously with respect to the SAC, he hasn't done his job.
The Auto Insurance Board cut services for 3 weeks as it put in place a new online service portal, and that led to backlogs and loud lineups. At least 11 people are dead and 10 others missing after an explosion at a coal mine in Colombia. The government says rescuers are working to reach miners trapped by the blast that happened last night.
So that was a little bit of getting more coffee break for 3 minutes and got a little bit of a taste of the news. So the collapse of Silicon Valley, we're back with yours truly, independent financial theorist and analyst who has many questions, so many things I don't know, but I firmly believe that where we are geopolitically, economically, financially in this 21st century on this March 15, 2023, I firmly believe that my theory and the implementation of my theory, the DRT, debt fusion theory, coupled with in parallel with the citizen integration theory and the democratic fusion theory for the creation of the two covenant complementary cooperative institutions, public-private partnership institutions, the North American Defense, Security and Service and Emergency Response Force, aka the North American Dragon Army, and the North American Integrated Dance League, aka the Dancing Goddess Army, to be for pleasure and purposes what's needed in this 21st century for the realities and where we are today, for today's world in the geopolitical arena, geopolitical sphere, and the realities of real geopolitics, where we are today on the verge of perhaps World War III can begin and has begun as I'm speaking now. And this, hopefully not, hopefully we'll channel the aggression, because if we are to replace war, we gotta channel the aggression and the violence into constructive activities and actions, push-ups and hugs, push-ups and hugs, push-ups and hugs, dancing and art, and go for a run, go for a march to channel and anger and all these, of course, which we gotta admit, sometimes it is hard to admit what we're dealing with, XYZ, hidden lusts, hidden fears, but nonetheless, that's for another cup of coffee with yours truly, Adrian Hana, Dragon Androgynous Pansexual, founder of the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom, my dream for the rebirth, rejuvenation, insurance of liberty, sharing of prosperity, security, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and of course, joy of the North American civilizational complex, aka the collective North American civilization. So, of course, collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. As you've read here, on March 10, 2023, which was last Friday, 5 days ago, the collapse of Silicon Valley occurred. On inflation, so treasury bonds, we learned that there are four types of treasury bonds. Market value of these bonds decreased to 2022 and into 2023 as the Federal Reserve, that's like the central bank of the United States, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates to curb an inflation surge. That's another paradox in the finance, because a lot of Bank of Canada included, myself, am servicing my debt the most. I'm paying most interest, in other words, due to the seven unprecedented hikes of last year, 2022, right? Seven Bank of Canada hikes, eight in total, seven last year and one in January, was it? Early January. So seven last year, one at the beginning of January, raised interest rates to curb an inflation surge, right? So the interest rates were raised, and then all the other interest rates are tied in, usually in the United States, to the Federal Reserve, whereas most credit cards and other mortgages which are flexible are tied in with the Bank of Canada, which acts as a central bank, of course, in Canada, and the Federal Reserve in, of course, United States, and Bank of Mexico in Mexico, and of course the European Central Bank that has a common 27 member states, 27 countries of Europe have a common bank, common central bank, in order, because they have monetary integration, what's called in finance monetary integration, meaning that they adopted a single currency, money. They have the same money, the euro. More than 27. Some still have their old as well, but many got rid of their old currency, such as Germany. They had the Deutsche Mark. There's no more Deutsche Marks. There, Italy, the lira, there's no more lira. France, there's no more of that. Some other countries retained, kept also their old currency, but not many. So to curb an inflation surge, so we're gonna read a bit about this event, financial event. A worldwide increase in inflation began in mid 2021, with many countries seeing their highest inflation rates in decades, Canada included, more than 4 decades. High inflation, which means basically, in other words, what is inflation? The power of our dollar decreases, meaning we buy less. So for that same dollar, as inflation increases, the purchasing power decreases. So we lose. For $1, we might have bought 100 grams of chocolate. In a week, if there's inflation in a month, we might buy only 95 grams after a month. Maybe after 3 months, only 90 grams. After 6 months, 80 grams. And maybe after a year, from 100 grams for $1, we only buy 70. But the price goes up. But also, it can be shrinkflation, because it affects shrinkflation. But it's usually by cost relative. So it could go that same 100 grams could cost $1, and in a year could cost 130 or more depending on the inflation. So that is basically inflation simplified. The event, the phenomenon, economic, financial, commercial phenomenon, as inflation means, because I think a lot of people use too many words to describe inflation with so many, but basically that's what it means. For the same dollar you buy less, or it costs more to buy the same. So same thing, quantity, quality, it's mostly by the quantity, right? Or quantity of that same product. So the price of bananas per pound goes up, the price of bacon goes up, the price of milk goes up, and sometimes there is also shrinkflation when those are reduced. As I've seen, for example, the crackers I bought, there were 300 grams, and it went down to 275. So 300 minus 275 is 25. So it's about 8%. The weight was reduced by 25 grams, which the equivalent on 300 grams is about 8% if you are to convert it into percentages. That's what it is. So other products as well, but this specific one, which I still buy it, it's this one. I want to see it. What I'm discussing, so is this product. So there's 4 packs like this in this product. See, there's 4 packs. So this product went shrinkflated. So there's still 4 packs, but now they probably took a few of these off. So 25 grams less since last year. It used to be 300 grams exactly, and now it says on the package is 275. So one time just before a few months ago, I said, hey, I noticed. I said, look, this is 275, this is 300, and they still had from the old batch. Because they ordered whatever the order was, and they were still together. And then now there's no more of the 300. But a few months ago, when I noticed it, I said, hey, this is 300. I even showed my anonymous friend. I said, look, so what do you notice? And smart, very smart, smartest woman I know, anonymous. If I make a million, gonna give her half. If I make a billion, gonna give her half. A trillion, gonna give her half. And of course, you know, yeah, it went down. They reduced the gram, the weight. I said, yeah, exactly. But I still got to get one on the last ones. Was 300 grams, and the other ones were no more. 300 grams was 275. So that's shrinkflation. So the inflation surge, higher interest rates also raised borrowing costs throughout the economy, and some Silicon Valley bank clients started pulling money out to meet their liquidity needs. To raise cash to pay withdrawals by its depositor, SVB announced on March 8 that it had sold over 31 billion. A billion is 1,000 million worth of securities, borrowed 15 billion. A billion is 1,000 million. Keep in mind, a billion is 1,000 million. It's not 100. I had to say to somebody the other day because I said that's a lot. That's 100 million. I said no, it's 1,000. 1 billion is 1,000 million, and would hold an emergency sale of some of its treasury stocks to raise 2.25 billion, including 500 million to General Atlantic. The announcement, coupled with warnings from prominent Silicon Valley investors, caused a bank run as customers withdrew funds totaling 42 billion by the following day. 42 billion by the following day. 42 billion. So 1 billion is 1,000 million, so that is a big amount of withdrawals. 42 billion the following day. So 42,000 million. 42 billion is the equivalent of 42,000 million. So 42 billion is the equivalent of 42,000 million. So it's 42 and 9 zeros. A billion has 9 zeros. A million has 6 zeros. No. I got more kisses. A trillion has 12 zeros. So I'm rich in kisses, although I'm in the minus and in $10,000 in debt. $10,000 in debt. $10,000 in debt. I got some brain and some muscle, and I think that my DRT is what needs to be done, the debt refusion T. On the morning of March 10, 2023, the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation seized SVB and placed it under the receivership of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC. About 89% of the bank's 172 billion in deposit liabilities exceeded the maximum insured by the FDIC. 2 days after the failure, FDIC received. So let's read a bit. What is the On the morning of March 10, 2023, California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation seized SVB and placed it. So the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation regulates a variety of financial services, businesses, products, and professionals. The department operates under the California Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency. Seized SVB and placed it under the receivership of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation is a United States government corporation supplying deposit insurance to depositors in American commercial banks and savings banks. The FDIC was created by the Banking Act of 1933, enacted during the Great Depression. So to protect, insure the depositors, right? About 89% of the bank's 172 billion in deposit liabilities exceeded the maximum insured by the FDIC. 2 days after the failure, the FDIC received the exceptional authority from the Treasury and announced jointly with other agencies that all depositors would have full access to their funds the next morning, seeking to auction off all parts of the bank. The FDIC reopened on March 13, which is 2 days ago, Monday, this is March 15 today, as a newly organized bridge bank. A bridge bank is an institution created by a national regulator or central bank to operate a failed bank until a buyer can be found. A bridge bank. Silicon Valley Bridge Bank, NA. NA is in North America, I guess. NA, North America. Superseding an earlier plan to satisfy depositors through a deposit insurance national bank and receivership dividends. A deposit insurance national bank is a temporary bank in the United States that is established by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation in the wake of a bank failure under the Banking Acts of 1933 and 1935, which were, of course, during the Great Depression. Federal institutions created during the Great Depression, which lasted more than 13 years or so, 1929 and until after the war, right? The collapse of the SVB has had a significant impact on startups from the US and abroad, with many unable to withdraw money from the bank for a limited time period. Other large technology companies, media companies, and wineries also impacted. Interesting. So there's a background here. The background: Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief, and Consumer Protection Act. The Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief, and Consumer Protection Act was signed into law by President Donald Trump on May 24, 2018. The bill eased financial regulations imposed by Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. 2021-2023. A worldwide increase, like we began to say, as is ongoing inflation. It seems that the raising of the interest rate has not necessarily tamed or this inflation. It still continues from what we know. Sometimes it takes some time, a few weeks, months after the raising of the rates to see us, but we have not seen yet, right? Inflation is still ongoing. So this is an important part of the background to the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank, all the events and the economic, financial, commercial transaction and events. So the worldwide increase in inflation began in mid-2021. So almost mid-2021 is about 22 months ago. 2021, 2023, March. So almost, well, not yet, but 1 year, 9 months ago, almost 2 years ago, let's say almost 2 years ago, inflation began, the inflation. So it's worldwide, global, because it's international. We have to say that it's not only Canadian, North American, or Western. A worldwide increase in inflation has begun, right? COVID and 2020, 2022, cryptocurrency bubble. So there was a cryptocurrency bubble as well. So thus I'm speculating, rather assuming on, from reading that the Silicon Valley was involved in different crypto exchanges and what have you. 2020, 2022 cryptocurrency bubble. A cryptocurrency bubble is a phenomenon where the market increasingly considers the going price of cryptocurrency assets to be inflated against their hypothetical value. The history of cryptocurrency has been marked by several speculative bubbles. Like I said myself on crypto, it's mostly a speculative instrument, not an asset. I don't classify crypto as an asset, no. Speculative, and it's not a currency in its traditional form with a bank regulating, but nonetheless, it is fancy, wow, wondrous, sophisticated computer, software, internet tech, communication tech. Nonetheless, I don't take that away from crypto. It's can be cool, but and it's super cool, sleek, 21st century like that, but it's a speculative instrument. So background. SVB was a commercial bank founded in 1983 and headquartered in Santa Clara, California. At its collapse, 5 days ago, March 10th, SVB was the 16th largest bank in the U.S. and was heavily skewed toward serving companies and individuals from the technology industry. Nearly half of U.S. venture capital-backed healthcare and technology companies were financed by SVB. Nearly half of U.S. venture capital-backed healthcare and technology companies were financed by SVB. Nearly half of U.S. venture capital backed healthcare and technology companies were financed. That's a lot. Companies such as Airbnb, Cisco, Fitbit, Pinterest, and Block Inc. have been clients of the bank. In addition to financing venture-backed companies, the SVB was well known as a source of private banking, personal credit lines, and mortgages to tech entrepreneurs, and specialized lending money to higher risk new companies. Silicon Valley Bank required an exclusive relationship of those borrowing from the bank. Prior to March 9, 2023, SVB was in sound financial condition, according to California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, though an increased number of short sellers began to target SVB earlier in the year. Short sellers. In finance, being short in an asset means investing in such a way that the investor will profit if the value of the asset fails. This is the opposite of a more conventional long position, where the investor will profit if the value of the asset rises. In finance, being short in an asset means investing in such a way that the investor will profit if the value of the asset fails. This is the opposite of a more conventional long position. In finance, being short in an asset means investing in such a way that the investor will profit if the value of the asset fails. Began to target SVB earlier in the year. Employees received their annual bonuses on March 10, 2023. Employees received their annual bonuses on March 10, 2023, hours before the government took control of the company. That's interesting. Employers received their annual bonuses on March 10, 2023, hours before the government took control of the company. Employees received their annual bonuses on March 10, 2023, hours before the government took control of the company. As of the last call report of the bank filed December 31st, 2022, it held 209 billion. Remind me what billion is, 1,000 million. And of course, with 175.5 billion in total deposits, of which the bank estimated 151.6 billion, or 86.4%, were uninsured. So the collapse of the SVB Silicon Valley Bank is, of course, the second biggest collapse in financial banking history, collapse of the United States, and among that will be, of course, on the top of the world, since if is the second. I wonder, the world that hasn't been on the global, international level, how much does it compare to other bank collapses of Germany, Italy, or Japan, or whatever have you? I would wonder a comparison if we had to compare it on an international scale of wealth and billions of dollars in management and assets and what have you. But since it's the second biggest in the United States ever in history, right? It's a very, very hardcore financial event in the negative sense, in the bad sense, in the not good sense. So the bank deposits increased. Collapse. Losses. The bank deposits increased from 62 billion in March 2020 to 124 billion. If you do the math, 62 times 2, that's exactly 124. So doubled in a year. From March 2020 to March 2021, it doubled. 62 billion March 2020 to 124 billion in March 2021. 62 billion, a billion is 1,000 million, in March 2020 to 124 billion in March 2021. So it doubled. 62 times 2, that is 124 billion. That is doubling, benefiting from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on science and technology. Most of these deposits were invested in long-term treasury bonds as the bank sought a higher return on investment than was available on shorter term bonds. These long-term bonds fell in current market value as current interest rates rose during the 2021-2023 inflation surge as they became less active as investments. In April 2022, SVB chief risk officer stepped down and a successor was not named until January 2023. A period coinciding with a period of interest rate increases, right? At the end of 2022, its market-to-market unrealized losses for securities held to maturity exceeded 15 billion. Interesting. So it went under receivership. So it's a long article here. We're going to continue in the part 2 and part 3. And now we're going to go to read about the news. What is in the news about finance? And of course, keep in mind that I'm calling for the implementation of my theory, the DRT, which simply put, the DRT is taking all private and public debt. My debt refusal theory taking all private or public debt. My private debt to the RBC Royal Bank of Canada is $10,000 if X represents the private debt of private citizens such as myself. And I'm X1, you're X2, there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of X's across the North American civilizational complex, taking all the debt, public and private, and since the United States dollar is still the international financial currency of choice, the global trade currency of choice, the worldwide economics currency of choice, pegging it, and of course all the debt were converted into US dollars, the Canadian debt, the private and the public Canadian debt, the Mexican debt, and my inclusion in the collective North American civilization is Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, and the islands, as many others do included. Paradoxical inclusion of Cuba in the collective North American civilization, and of course, taking all the private and the public debt, whatever the number is in US dollars, the United States dollars will stay the same. The public and the private is going to be in the trillions of dollars. So converting all the Canadian debt, dollar debt into US dollars, all the Mexican peso into US dollars, and with that number, whatever the number is, it's going to be in the trillions to be established the initial money supply of this new North American integrated central bank, and for that matter, calling on, of course, NATO member countries of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization with Israel, and even others in Africa, brothers and sisters in Africa and the Middle East and Central America, South America, is to move for the creation of a Bank of International Settlements as well, the BIS in Switzerland, Bank of International Settlements, Bank of International Settlements, to create what I call the UE. So taking all the debt, private and public, whatever the number is in the trillions, that would be the initial money supply of the bank, and freeze, peg, standardize the prices of the goods, services, goods on that US dollar, whatever it is, because the US dollar is still the international finance currency of choice, and create it, peg to that dollar, create the UE. The UE stands for Universal Exchange Unit, U.E.U. Preferably by biometrics, and of course, can have with the cards, with the phones, with the fintech, calling on Nuve, and all others involved, PayPal, and others, BlackRock, Mr. Fing, to support it, public-private partnership, and to create what I call the UE, stands for Universal Exchange Unit, preferably by biometrics, since the hand, the voice, and the eye are unique biometric identifiers, and secure food, housing, and transport as a social security net. Of course, food, housing, and transport, and do everything in the philosophy in a 21st century manner for the rebirth, regeneration, rejuvenation, and of course rebirthing and stimulating the economy, and going for an economic system of pleasure and purpose towards an economic, financial, commercial system for both pleasure and purpose, to volunteer, to learn everything that we have as a civilization by the application of my other theory called the CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, at all levels of our North American civilizational collective, and of course throughout the North American civilizational complex and beyond NATO member countries and beyond who want to join us in this great standardization 21st century alliance and create the UE. So taking all private and public debt, refusing it, hopefully starting by tomorrow at midnight tonight, tomorrow, in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead, calling for this great theory of my Bank of Canada, Federal Reserve, Bank of Mexico, Janet Yellen, Macklin, Mr. Macklin, and Mr. Fink, and all small business and big corporations, all governments and institutions and corporations in economics, finance, and universities and financial professors to support this theory, because with all the imperfections, all the flaws, and I'm not perfect, far from it. I admit that some things I am mediocre. I admit that some things I am average. I admit that some things I am so-so. While being so-so and average and mediocre at some things, I am also great, super, and excellent at some other things. I have so many questions, but I do firmly believe my DRT, debt fusion theory, can break a lot of impasses and propel us in the 21st century as we move towards, of course, a new world order for pleasure and purpose, post-COVID economic, financial, social system, and this new social contract of the 21st century, and a sort of a reset and a begin as I am beginning and I have begun and being rebirthing during COVID, and my own rebirth and healing and transformation, and encourage all to work out, to try and exercise and support the DRT, debt refusion theory across the collective North American civilization. I firmly believe in it, and to transnationalize it with global, international, with NATO, and to create the UE, Universal Exchange Unit. I believe it is what is needed as a solution to what we're going on economically, financially, commercially, and to offer standardization of prices, and then we can move even forward. I'm calling on multi-billionaires to please support this theory and support, of course, the financing of my fellow brothers and sisters, citizens, to work out, to train, to exercise. It really has been medicine, and to build an economic, financial, commercial, social system to rebirth and to be for pleasure and purpose, and offer services to be for defense and security, the public-private partnership with the Dragon Army, but first and foremost, the DRT, the debt refusion theory, that I'm calling for the creation of the UE, the debt refusion theory that I'm calling for the creation of the UE, the debt refusion theory that I'm calling for the creation of the UE, standing for the Universal Exchange Unit. Contagion. So this is another risk which has been discussed by economic professors, financiers, those involved in the analysis of commercial matters. Contagion. 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 So I'm going to read now. I'm going to go from Wikipedia to Investopedia, from Wikipedia to Investopedia, from Wikipedia to Investopedia. What is contagion? Because there's fears, even today there's been in the news, that is the fear of contagion. And before we go there, I'm going to go on MSN, Microsoft. I'm going to look at the stock markets now. If I would have some money in the stock markets, people have money, there's percentage, maybe 1% of the population, maybe 5%, maybe even 10 or more percent. What's the percentage of population? Myself personally, I only have stock in my dream with kisses, trillions of kisses, billions of hugs, billions of push-ups, billions of marching steps, billions of dance moves, billions of songs, millions of songs of rock and roll and rap and art and poetry invested in the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom, which I'm founding on Montreal, Hawk Island, Montreal, aka Hawk Island in North America, to be a public-private partnership for the collective North American civilization, calling all governments, institutions, and organizations, both public and private, for this public-private partnership, which fundamentally my dream for the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom is a public and a private partnership. As I am financially struggling, but rich in kisses and grateful that my rent's paid, electricity bill is paid, and got food, and encourage all to work out, to train, and to exercise, sweat, is a good medicine, has been, is, and will be my medicine and therapy choice. So I'm looking now, I'm going to be looking at MSN, money. What is fundamentally money? To buy and sell services, goods. Money is fundamentally to buy and sell services and goods. Money is fundamentally to buy and sell services and goods. It's in the red a lot. So the S&P is in the red today, March 15th. This is 3:33 p.m. 3:33 p.m. It's exactly 3:33 p.m. There'll be 156 trillions of kisses added to my allies and armies. 156 trillions of kisses to my allies and armies for regeneration, rebirth, prosperity, rising on 156 trillions of kisses for my allies and armies. Pledge your allegiance for the rejuvenation, healing, and pleasure and protection of kisses. So yours truly, 3:34 now p.m. So still buying and selling for the next 44 minutes or so on the stock markets. Wall Street, please give for FTSE 10% of every million you make buying, selling, trading stocks, short selling, short selling, short selling, all that business there. So popular MSN is reporting an minus S&P minus 344. So it's really in the red. It lost on 1.75% today. S&P TSX, Toronto Stock Exchange, is losing now, is in the minus 344, and this fluctuates now because MSN, of course, is connected with all the servers, computers, which connect us to the internet all the way to Wall Street, to Toronto, to the Montreal Stock Exchange, to those individuals, institutional investors who are buying, selling, trading stocks now. And of course, the Dow is also in the minus 357.74. Can round it up to 358, round it up 350, round up 358. That's 1.11%. The S&P 500 minus 33.23. That's almost 1% in the minus. Minus 0.85%. Nasdaq is minus 1.12. That's 0.01%. That's not that in the minus, but when it's more than 1% in a day of trade, it's a lot of it's in the red a lot. So it could be a crash this week, could be a global financial collapse this week, a stock market crash could occur. You got trillions of kisses, billions of marching steps, and some brain and some muscle, and the DRT, which I believe it is to be implemented, the debt refusion to taking all private and public debt, refuse it to create the UE. The UE stands for U.E. Universal Exchange Unit, because that's what money fundamentally is, to buy and sell services, and to create the two complementary public and private partnership institutions to be integrated with all institutions and organizations for XYZ, only and strictly and solely for defense of the North American civilizational collective of North American emergency response and secure food, housing, and transport, and attain harmony between civilization and nature, that I'm calling the creation of the two complementary covenant and cooperative public-private partnership institutions, the Dragon Army for defense, security, and service, and of course, the Dancing Goddess Army for pleasure and purpose, environmental education and action, because it requires constant education and action in us for us to do better recycling, composting, and everything that we put in the garbage, and everything that we do to be more environmentally sound and friendly, and do attain harmony between civilization and nature. So it's in the red. Wow, a lot of percentages. So Athabasca Oil Corporation has lost today 4.04 percentage of their stock. Major trends are all mostly in the red. Canadian US dollar, there's one Canadian dollar is the equivalent of 72.6. So 72 rounded up to 73 cents a Canadian dollar. So it's gone down and it's in the minus. It's dropping, is dropping. The stock market is in the drop. Canada markets close in 23 minutes at 4 o'clock p.m. Canada markets close in 22 minutes now. So it's going a bit down and up, but it's mostly in the red since it started trading. It's considered since 10 a.m., of course 9:30 a.m. till of course 4 p.m. and 4:30 for Wall Street, 4:30 for Wall Street, 4:30 for Wall Street. So of course Chenovis Energy, it's minus 7%. Incorporated Pembina Pipeline Corporation is minus 418, minus 418, minus 4.18%. So Baytex Energy Corporation has lost, it's in the red, 8.58%. Suncor Energy Incorporated. Suncor Energy Incorporated is minus 6.62, minus 6.63, it's fluctuating, 6.63. So there, it's in the red. The markets are in the red, the stocks are in the red. And of course it has affected due to the, on the 10th, 5 days ago, to the SVB collapse. It's reverberating because it's the second biggest collapse in U.S. banking history, and perhaps in the top in the 10, 5, maybe even in the world, right? Since the U.S. banking system is among the strongest, if not the strongest, economic, financial banking, U.S. banking has been considered the top in the world, right? For many decades now, at least after, since the end of the Second World War. Well, during this Cold War, there was the difference of the banking system in the Soviet Union, right? There was a different banking in communist socialism, which, of course, paradoxically, we still have some communist, socialist, self-marked socialist communist states in the world. One party, Marxism, from Karl Marx, right, is socialist communist theory. which of course I can discuss if you want to finance commission sponsor a discussion on Marxism and Karl Marx and Dragon Style, and let it be known, understood that I'm a pro-labor universal revolutionary centrist. I'm a pro-labor universal revolutionary centrist, pro-labor and love, universal revolutionary centrist, believing in my Trinity of theories as a pro-labor and love. Love is important to build, maintain a great civilization, and I gotta be from love. Love is also action, not just blah blah blah. And of course, I believe my Trinity of theories, and of course, I'm a pro-labor, universal, revolutionary centrist because I believe the 21st century be marked by public-private partnership, of which my theories are fundamentally PPP based, stands for public-private partnership for the 21st century. New institutions integrated public and the private sphere, and of course, monetary integration, such as my UE, part of the financial system, called what's called in finance monetary integration, such as the what the European Union did. The European Union, the EU adopting the euro. We could do it for North America and beyond. We can unite with euro and call it the UE, because the UE is universal exchange unit, and Israel, and the Middle East calling on the Bank of Israel, Bank of Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen, the United States, Bank of Canada, Bank of Mexico, my brothers and sisters in Mexico, throughout NATO member countries, and of course throughout the North American civilizational complex first, throughout the collective North American civilizational complex, because we are Mexicans, Canadians, United States, we constitute a collective North American civilization, North America, right? Along with Haiti, Dominican Republic, and Cuba. And I believe my philosophies, protocols for the 21st century are part of what's needed in a great manner for this 21st century, where we can rebirth, heal, and have some joy and some pleasure, and we can rebuild and build the collective North American civilizational complex, aka the collective North American civilization, into a mega superpower for pleasure and purpose and everything that we'll continue to do. And again, it is in the red. I'm looking at the stock market now from MSN, Microsoft, MSN. The stocks are in the red. I don't know if there's some seconds delay with other reporting from whatever Bloomberg calling on Bloomberg also to support my DRT. Mr. Bloomberg, Dragon, Rainbow Dragon, who's not perfect, far from it. Doesn't play itself righteous, support the DRT, the debt refusion theory. Here I am, yours truly independent philosopher, geopolitical analyst, and theorist and artist, and financially struggling, but I'm rich in theory and philosophy and rock and roll and art, and I firmly believe this. The DRT is a very rich, wealthy, and affluent theory, and that must be implemented 100%. My debt refusion theory, and afterwards the created to complementary covenant institutions for the complex North American civilization, and then to have the citizen integration theory, CIT, to fight alienation, and then debt democratic fusion theory to integrate public and private partnership at institutional levels, and of course to do what we do, and even new creative activities, workout, train, exercise, and pleasurable activities, and activities to learn about civilization, everything that we have, such as how farming is done, how rail transportation works, infrastructure, highways, how electricity is done here in Hydro-Quebec. Thank you, workers of Hydro-Quebec, past, present, and future. Dragon credits you. Billions of hugs. Some go, Hydro-Quebec, go. Cheer the Hydro-Quebecers, my brothers and sisters, workers of Hydro-Quebec, so that in the coming 7 years from now, we're going to build 7 more dams, which are environmentally friendly, zero pollution, energy emission friendly. Bless Hydro-Quebec workers, so that in the next 7 years, build 7 more dams. In the coming 7 years, build 7 more dams, because we also going to power a little bit of New York State and 5, 6, I believe six states now in the U.S. and even in Manhattan Island is going to get a lot in the coming weeks, months, and years. A lot of hydropower, which is clean, zero pollution, zero emission from us here in Quebec Lab of Rents Energy. So the citizen integration theory, but first the debt fusion theory, and I'm going to not diverge into the CIT, my citizen integration theory, too much, because I'm focusing on the economic, financial, commercial events, which are now part of the collapse of Silicon Valley, which has triggered this economic, financial, commercial crisis here in March, beginning which March 10, March 10, March 10. And of course, we have the stock quotes, we have the minus in the minus. The stocks are losing ground. Percentages, S&P and TSX is losing 1.66, the Dow 1.38, the S&P 0.78, so they're still going down. The S&P, Nasdaq 0.39 in the minus 44.3. Nasdaq is minus 44.3. Nasdaq is minus 44.3. Let's read a bit. U.S. producer prices, oil sands giants rolling in cash last year, and also shareholders. Wall Street drops as Swiss as in Switzerland, the country. Credit Suisse sparks fresh bank sell-off. Let's read that a bit. So this is similarly what has caused another. So this is reported by Reuters, and of course reported by Amruta Kandekar Shumbram Batras. Apologies if I did not pronounce correct the name of the, not by ill intention whatsoever. I read too fast maybe, and so that. So U.S. stocks dropped on Wednesday today, still dropping as turbulence at Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse, S-U-I-S-S-E is the kind of French term to say Swiss. Credit Suisse is the name for Swiss credit, Credit Suisse. A turbulence in Switzerland, the country of Switzerland, the famous banking, financial, commercial headquarters of, some say, the world, global, international, but also with Wall Street, parallel to Wall Street. Switzerland. Gotta say that I get my $1 still for 100 grams. I've been surprised that it hasn't increased in price. Last week, 2 weeks ago, I went to check if it's still a dollar, and I got myself three for $3, $1 each, and it's imported from Switzerland. Swiss chocolate, black hazelnut chocolate that I get for $1, 100 grams, and I get the white one. So I get both because they're my favorite. White and black, hazelnut, black and white, just with no nuts, no, just plain white. Swiss chocolate, and it says made in Switzerland, so it's imported from Switzerland. I was thinking, hey, is it still a dollar? Ah, my. I was saying if it's still a dollar. So it was still a dollar. I'm like, wow. I'm grateful, thankful that it hasn't gone to 125 or 150 or even $2, right? Double the price. It's still a dollar. I don't know this week. I'm gonna have to go check if I still have some shekels, Canadian dollars to go get for a dollar. I wonder if it's still a dollar. Probably, but it could have gone up as well because it's 100 grams. It's a chocolate bar, 100-gram chocolate bar from Switzerland, imported from Swiss. So U.S. stocks dropped on Wednesday at turbulence at Credit Suisse, renewed fears of a banking crisis, while data hinting an economic weakness have kept alive hopes of a less aggressive monetary policy move by the Federal Reserve in March. So Credit Suisse, Switzerland, I'm also calling on the banking private and public of Switzerland to support this independent financial theories DRT. Debt refusion to Switzerland, support the DRT. Switzerland, support the DRT. Bank of International Settlements, the BIS, headquartered in World Bank and IMF, support the DRT. BIS, headquartered in Switzerland, please support the debt refusion theory. World Bank, support the debt refusion theory. IMF, support the debt refusion theory. The DRT for the 21st century. The DRT for the 21st century for the UE. The DRT for the 21st century for the UE. The DRT for the 21st century for the UE. The DRT debt refusion theory for the 21st century for the UE. Money, what is money? A exchange unit. That's why to have the UE, Universal Exchange Unit, standardized prices on goods, potatoes, bacon, milk, standardize them, make them affordable, secure food, housing, and transport. Have this public-private partnership. I dream the dancing goddess in the Dragon Kingdom. Encourage citizens to work out, train, exercise, and please increase in hygiene in public because my brothers and sisters, there's still microbes, germs, bacteria out there. You know, there's bacteria, germs, bacteria out there. COVID is still not over. And still, we got to keep this practice. I know we have a tendency to go back to exercise myself. Nothing that I want to go back. I want to work out more, train more, know more, learn more, hug more, kiss more, dance more, work out more, know more, learn more, go visit this Belle Provence. So many things to visit here in Quebec. So many dams. There's 63 of them dams, Hydro-Quebec, to visit. Coast to coast, Canada, all bit north, go south, where I was born in twice in past lives. Yours truly was born in the USA, served 156 years ago, 718 miles south of Hawk Island, Montreal, served in the U.S. Army. My eye. Somebody's throwing dirt, poison, filth in my eye. Stop throwing dirt, poison, filth in my eye, brother. I get dirty, but I get back clean as well. I don't play it self-righteous. I get dirty, but I get back clean. I don't play it self-righteous. I get dirty, but I get back clean. Don't play it self-righteous. Got some issues, got some vices, got not far from perfect. Working out, training, and exercising. Mass finance, public-private partnership by the UE, the DRT. Mass finance, social credit. Social credit will work out, do my workout training program system for push-ups, for hugs, for marching, marching, marching. Fitbit, calling on Fitbit and all public-private partnership, Fitbit and all the Fitbit, Apple, Google, YouTube, Facebook, Apple, Google, Facebook, YouTube, Apple, Google, Facebook, YouTube, to support my dream, to mass finance and incentivize people to work out, train, exercise. These are those who are laid off, for the Dragon Army to call to the Dragon Army to work out, train, exercise, to go for marching, credited, interconnected with 3G, 4G, 5G, public-private partnerships, to those who march for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours for the health, for wellness, for wellness, incentivize. Get a check in the bank, get a check in the bank, check in the bank. Mass finance, DRT, debt refusion to the UE. Citizens to march, to work out, to train, to exercise, to offer services. An economic, financial, commercial system in the 21st century for pleasure and purpose. For pleasure and purpose, secure the three essential elements of civilization: food, housing, and transport. Food, housing, and transport. Secure the three essential elements of civilization: food, housing, and transport. We've got a maintenance. Public-private partnership, transit, and of course citizen integration to encourage citizens, of course, and to have events to go see the farms, the trains, the ports, the docks, the plants, the electric plants who provide us electricity, the highways and everything that we do in infrastructure and defense coast to coast, ocean to ocean. And with our allies, NATO, Israel and beyond. The DRT supported in Switzerland. DRT for the UE for the 21st century. DRT for the UE for the 21st century. The DRT for the UE for the creation of the UE for the 21st century. Call it a heart, please. So US listed share of Credit Suisse slid 24.3 to hit a record low. Oh, this is bad. US listed shares of Credit Suisse slid 24 point, almost a quarter, almost 1/4 a quarter, 24.3, to hit a record low after the Swiss bank's largest investor said it could not provide more financial assistance to the lender. Fueling hopes of a less hawkish Fed policy data showed retail sales fell 0.4 last month from a growth of 3.2% in January, while economists polled by Reuters had expected a contraction of 0.3%. A separate report showed U.S. producer prices unexpectedly fell in February, and the rise in prices in January was not as large as initially thought, offering some hopeful signs in the fight against inflation. The data comes at a time when the collapse of SVB Financial and Pure Signature Bank had already fanned fears about the health of other banks, fueling hopes that the Fed would steer clear of sharp rates hikes as its next meeting to ensure financial stability. So it's in the red. Let's hear a little video here from. So there's fears of contagion. There's fears of contagion has grown. They were calmed down yesterday and Monday, but now with this Credit Suisse drop event, there's a fear of contagion. So what is contagion? And we're going to wrap up with that. Contagion, definition in economic crises, brief history from Investopedia. What is contagion? A contagion is the spread of an economic crisis from one market or region to another and can occur at both a domestic or international level. So domestic, and usually when I say local, I mean the North American civilizational complex, aka the collective North American civilization. So I mean usually North America when I say local. When I say local, usually I mean North America as a whole, Canada, US, Mexico, and of course the inclusion of the islands. Or international level would be, of course, because we got the Atlantic Ocean to the east and the Pacific Ocean to the west. So it would be Europe to the east, past the Atlantic and Asia past the Pacific to the west, from my perspective where I am in Montreal, aka Hawk Island. Contagion can occur because many of the same goods and services, especially labor and capital goods, can be used across many different markets, and because virtually all markets are connected through monetary and financial systems. A contagion is the spread of an economic crisis from one market or region to another and that can occur at both domestic or international level. Contagion can occur because many of the same goods and services, especially labor and capital goods, can be used across many different markets and become virtually all markets are connected through monetary and fiscal systems. A contagion is the spread of an economic crisis from one market or region to another and can occur at both a domestic or international level. Contagion can occur because many of the same goods and services, especially labor and capital goods, can be used across many different markets, and because virtually all markets are connected through monetary and financial systems. That's why the US dollar is still the international financial currency of choice, global trade currency of choice, worldwide commerce currency of choice. The real and nominal interconnections of markets can act as a buffer for the economy against economic shocks, or as a mechanism to propagate and even magnify shocks. The latter case is typically what economists and other commentators refer to as contagion, with a negative connotation likening the effect to the spread of a disease. Key takeaways. A contagion is the spread of an economic crisis from one market or region to another and can occur at both a domestic or international level because markets are interdependent. INTERDEPENDENT. Events in one market can impact other markets. When markets are robust, this can buffer negative economic shocks. When markets are fragile, it can magnify negative shocks, like the spread of a disease, usually associated with credit bubbles and financial crises. Contagions can be manifested as a crash in one market, leading to a crash in other markets. So I think this is the most important one. So usually associated with credit bubbles and financial crises, such as the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. And lead contagions can be manifested as a crash in one market, leading to a crash in other markets. Understanding contagion. Contagions, in the financial sense, are typically associated with the diffusion of economic crises throughout a market, asset class, or geographic region. In North America, similar effect can occur with the diffusion of economic booms. Contagions occur both globally and domestically, but they have become more prominent phenomena as the global economy has grown. Economies within certain geographic regions, such as the collective North American civilization, for which first and foremost my DRT debt fusion theory is, for the creation of the UE, but not only, but beyond, have become more connected to one another, and economies have become more financialized. So financialization is, of course, with credit cards, bank loans, and stocks, international, global, worldwide stocks. You can buy stocks from of different corporations, companies, businesses that are in Africa, Asia, Middle East, Central America, South America, Europe, and so on, Australia, usually associated with financial crisis. So the important thing is many academics and analysts see contagions as being primarily symptomatic of global financial market interdependence. Many academics and analysts see contagions as being primarily symptomatic of global financial market interdependence. So many academics and analysts see contagions as being primarily symptomatic of global financial markets interdependence. And with that, I got some other work to do of the fitness, because we trained the brain a bit. Grateful, thankful for my rent's paid, electricity bill is paid. Thank you, farmers, because everybody got to eat, even Wall Street, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, firefighters, public security workers, all truckers, all involved in the production and the distribution of food, firefighters, and of course, public security workers and sanitation workers of the city, all building, construction workers, infrastructure, farmers, butchers, nurses, bakers, cooks, all the plumbers, IT workers, train conductors, bus drivers, all general workers of the collective North American civilization. From this rock and roll financially the struggle artist, rock and roll, thank you, and love and Encourage all the workout, train, exercise, because working out, training, and exercising has been, is, and will continue to be my medicine and therapy of choice. Yours truly, independent geopolitical analyst, independent financial theorist, and scholar, student of history, world civilizations, and activist, philosopher, the world's greatest living, dancing millennial rainbow poet, fundamentally with some brain and some muscle. Part one of this ongoing financial emergency, economic financial emergency. Let it be good for the good. Maybe we heal, understand more, learn more. Maybe we heal and transform for a better world, more better world in all senses, mind, body, and spirit, and to move to the 21st century, public-private partnership for the mind, body, and spirit, for pleasure and purpose, for pleasure and purpose, for pleasure. Both can dance together. Purpose, attain harmony between civilization and nature, and address economic, social, natural, civilizational problems. Never delete, never delete, never delete, never delete. Put it on Facebook, and we go never delete.